Welcome to the Family Business Audiocast on LinkedIn. I'm R.M. Smith, creator of this audiocast series. I've been an entrepreneur, investment banker, and board leader for over 25 years. I want to thank the registrants for joining live today on LinkedIn. Family business is a passion of mine, having grown up in a family of entrepreneurs and having engaged for 2 decades in a wide range of dialogues and businesses with fascinating family enterprises and family firms around the globe. I founded the Family Business Audiocast to offer a useful platform for listeners to hear from veterans, academics, and leaders in family owned enterprises, family offices, and entrepreneurs themselves. I hope you find these conversations enlightening today. We welcome today Bruce Kasanoff. Bruce, it's really wonderful to have you here today. Thank you for joining and on our being a guest on our Articast today.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, brief comment on our esteemed guest. Bruce collaborates with hundreds of top tier entrepreneurs, prominent speakers, and authors. His expertise lies in amplifying their unique skills and visibility by pinpointing the core of their insights to resonate the most with others. Bruce holds an MBA from the Wharton School and has shared his innovative ideas at esteemed institutions around the world, such as Wharton, Yale, New York University. As a pioneer among LinkedIn influencers, Bruce boasts over 800,000 followers in the platform and also a dedicated readership of 175,000 for his Mountain Minute newsletter, where he emphasizes career growth through altruism, and several hundred thousand overall, including his Distill the Real You newsletter, centered on leading a life of purpose. He's also the founder of Bend Reality, a community of expansive human beings, and has written 6 books. Recently, one called How to Promote Without Being a Jerk. Finally, a proud member of Marshall Goldsmith's 100 Coaches program, Bruce fully embraces his mandate to be one of the greatest possible service to others. So let's get into it today. Bruce, considering your extensive experience in magnifying talent, how do you think entrepreneurs from family-owned businesses and family firms can elevate their unique insights and value to their own organization?
Well, I think it's no different than anybody else. And what I found is working with entrepreneurs that if you can focus on what matters most consistently, day after day, you will be successful. You'll be fulfilled. You'll feel like you're making progress. That's an easy thing to say. The question is, how do you do that? Um, and the answer also, I mean, for I'll give you just a quick example. So each of the clients who are my entrepreneur um, clients, we talk once a week, and I always ask them in some form or another that question: What matters most? What matters most to you? Sometimes people say today, sometimes say in life, sometimes say in their business, sometimes they're founding a new institution. Whatever it is, if you stop on a regular basis, so in my case with my clients, it's once a week. And first of all, you think about what matters most to you out of all the things you're doing, out of all the directions in which you're being pointed, and you formulate an answer. And what I found accidentally, my practice didn't start exactly this way, is um, trying to explain this to a person who literally uh, will not stop asking you questions until they fully understand you, until they can repeat it back as well or better than you can, is a profound practice. So whether you choose a coach, a friend, your business partner, your relative, whoever it is, um, I don't think there's anything that you could possibly do more than on a regular basis, not monthly, not yearly, but at least weekly, and some people do it daily. Uh, Ask yourself, what matters most to me? Can I enunciate this for other people? And do they understand?
Right, and that's obviously essential in today's leadership community for the 90% of the U.S. economy, really privately held, closely held businesses. Right, so many of those businesses are not as plugged into the digital age or LinkedIn, or they may not be as active in the coaching circuit. How would you how do you see these entrepreneurs and in our case, some of the family owned firms develop trust and utilize LinkedIn in today's digital age in terms of coaching, leadership content, joining boards? Maybe you could share some of your vast experience and leveraging this.
Sure. I mean, I think there's LinkedIn, like most ways we communicate these days, is is really fragmented. And if you look at LinkedIn casually, you can see a lot of people, you know, I don't know. They're just, there's a lot of, oh, I made $1 million in 9 months. You can too. How to leverage the platform, how to get a lot of followers. It's just overwhelming. I think the people who use LinkedIn really well are the people who know. If I said to you, who's in your network, who matters to you, you're not trying to be, a mass market star. You should have a good sense of who it is that cares about you, that you care about,
Right.
and perhaps extend it a bit in terms of people like that. Um, the people I work with that are really have a micro community. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean it's small necessarily, but it's
But
certainly
it's
a
high
subset of
quality. Yeah.
LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the difference. Is that like I some of my most successful clients in terms of using LinkedIn, if I said to you who follows you on LinkedIn, they could sit there and name 300 people
Hmm.
because they're people they also know in real life. They had know when they've seen them. They look for opportunities to interact, and they have overlapping goals. And so it really comes down to relationships. Do you really? I mean, I think of it this way: if you had, let's say, you get 500 people to read something you post on LinkedIn, if you had 500 people in the room with you, what would you do? Would you, you know, have a dialogue with them where you just say, "Thanks for coming. I really appreciate the like," and so it's
Hmm.
it's a lot of it's functioning on LinkedIn like you do in real life and really having conversations. And if somebody says something interesting, reach out to them or be welcoming if they want to reach out to you. It's just being a human being.
That's a good point. The genuine factor is very important on LinkedIn, especially given the vast B2B community. And I think for family owned firms, right, family enterprises, family offices that are a bit more private, they are increasingly using LinkedIn, but with a bit of skepticism and being very selective, right? So I
Mm.
like what you
Well,
said about following certain industries and certain companies and leaders and people that inspire you, because that will then be within your audience. I've
can I
noticed,
just jump in and say one thing,
yeah.
Adam, to that? It's so that, I mean, among my clients are, for example, like people involved in private equity, they are not necessarily, um, by any stretch of the imagination, who you would expect to be seeing using LinkedIn. They're not necessarily using it to get their next deal, but um, they still can use it in such a way that they strengthen relationships. They come across people they didn't know, or perhaps, I mean, here's the way I think of it: is I can't read your mind. I don't know what's
Hmm.
most important to you. I don't know what's going on this month, even perhaps this year. Maybe I talked to you 2 years ago. Things like LinkedIn are a good way to keep that kind of the edges of your network aware of what's most important to you, what you're working on, what you're interested in, so that then synchronicity can happen. People can reach out. I mean, this is how people get jobs, they get deals. It's from the edges of their networks, and
Got it.
LinkedIn is phenomenal for that.
Yeah. So on for your newsletters and your books, I've been going through them, and they're very inspiring.
Thank
So
you.
I think from an entrepreneurial perspective, with the audience being privately held companies that tend to operate in their own circuit, a lot of private companies are between 100 and 500 million of sales, right? So they've been building up for
Mhm.
10, 20, 50 years, and they're in their comfort zone, but they still want to grow, and they want to learn and expand their network with other leaders and inspirational figures like yourself. Talk about your newsletters and your approach to personal growth. How would you advise family-owned businesses to think about growth within their board, within their culture and their organization, and what's in those newsletters and also your books that you think would be helpful for.
Sure. Um, well, first of all, I'm going to answer that two ways. Um, Newsletters on LinkedIn are a great way to do what we were just talking about. That is to identify, what it is that matters most to you, who do you want to communicate with, and have a regular way to, whether it's weekly or biweekly or monthly, to communicate with people on that front. I mean, I just launched my second newsletter, Distill the Real You. I only launched it a week and a half ago. It has tens of thousands of people who have subscribed. One of the reasons I think is because um, it's very focused on a different top. Mountain Minute is about how to do well by doing good. Oh, Distill the Real You is about how do you get to the core of who you are as a human being. It's a different topic. They're overlapping to agree, but they're a different topic. If you can do the same in your business, whether it's on a LinkedIn newsletter or it's in, you know, just thinking about the relationships and whether they're business or personal or both, uh, that's really important because it gives if you give people clarity over, for example, I'd like to talk to you next week, next month, um, about here's why, here's what you can expect from me. The more that people can, you know,
Got it.
not to be, you don't want to be predictable in the sense of boring, but you want to know here's the boundaries. I'm not going to, for example, one of my boundaries is I'm not negative on social media ever. Um, the 3 or 4 times in the last 10 years I've forgotten that, I've instantly regretted it. And
Got it.
and a lot of what we think of as being, oh, constructive or realistic,
Hmm.
I just don't want to do that. I don't need to bring it into the platform. And so to make for the the people you deal with in family offices and family businesses, you have to make decisions like that. Like say, how do I want to move through my world? And I mean, one of my favorite things, it's kind of
So
lofty, is
continuously building your brand with a positive orientation, essentially, and be
well,
constructive and
I
positive.
would say a step before that, I would say, who do you want to be? And then if you want to talk about a brand that reflects that, and you can say that for your organization, you can say that personally, you should say it personally first. But yeah, who do you want to be? How do you want to move through the world? And then you get to business terms like, brand and things. But first and foremost, I mean, the most successful um, people, organizations, there's no difference. There's no
Mhm.
difference if you meet them in person versus you define their brand. And so one of the things about family business, um, that I think there are wonderful examples out there of highly congruent family businesses that are kind of purpose driven or at least values driven first. And they've done that sometimes through generations. They certainly do that, for year upon year, year after year. You do have greater freedom
Mhm.
than if you're, a public company and you're going quarter to quarter.
True. Well, let's look at the vast scale of privately held businesses and family firms and family enterprises, right? There's so many of them, and almost a majority of them want to continue their legacy, right? They want to get through the G2, G3. They may or may not want to sell their company. They may want to take distributions out of it and retain it because it's what they're passionate about, it's what they know the best.
Mhm.
So in your writings, you talk about promotion of yourself, but in a way that is more inclusive and positive and collaborative, without being a jerk, let's say. So in family businesses, the group is so tightly knit, often even without outsiders and independent directors or investors.
Right.
Um, so for that particular audience that are closely held, how would you suggest that the individuals, let's say the children or other partners in the company, would expand their brand, but without overshadowing the family business or its legacy or its kind of
Mm.
the team rah rah essentially of that company, right?
Right. Right. I mean, I look, I think a lot of this has to do with um, some combination of what we're talking about in the totality of this conversation. Um, Being able as an individual to be, how to say, congruent to who you are, and yet serving the system, in this case, the family business, the family itself, um, as well. So I have a very good friend. Her name is Molly Chang. It's Tschang. She does Say It Skillfully, which is a website, and also she's active on LinkedIn because she's built this whole thing around Say It Skillfully, which is the videos to show you how to have difficult conversations and content related like that. And one of the things that she has taught me is you can bring up all sorts of challenging issues, from succession to we have different financial goals to how do we work together to how do I be an individual and yet,
Mhm,
respect the family. And the real question is
mhm,
the two things. One is, can you say what needs to be said as opposed to burying it? And two, can you say it in a way that, as I said a moment ago, that serves the system? That I'm not saying, I'm out for myself and, screw everybody else. It's like we're trying to serve the system together. And I know serve the system is not the sexiest or warmest way to say it, but
mhm.
as long as you're doing that, you can tackle all sorts of issues successfully. And if you don't convey that, like if one of the reasons I brought up Molly and I love her and her work so much because she'll give a little, less than a minute example on video, and in 35 seconds of bringing up a subject as she's modeling it for you, um, she says about four things. She
Hmm,
always says something that's a statement of mutual goals or respect, and that I'm here to support, what we're all doing together. And then she brings up whatever it is that she's trying to bring up. And that sense of, why are we doing this together? And let me do something constructive is really the key.
right, and that genuineness really is important in closely held businesses for their culture, and particularly if they ever
Mm,
wanna have investors to come into that closed-knit ecosystem to be direct and be forthright and kind of
right.
open up a bit, right? There's a quote by Mark Twain saying, "All motion is involuntary when genuine," so it really comes out real.
Mm,
But I see these uh, closely held businesses have a hard time sometimes opening up to outsiders. It can be an independent board director, it can be an investor, or it can be a partner coming in to come in and buy and build the company. So,
right.
what are your thoughts on that balance? Maybe some of your thoughts of experiences from Wharton or some of the Marshall Goldsmith coaching of the entrepreneurs. How do you see some experiences you've seen or conversations you've had to balance that internal culture with with what the outside world is looking for coming into
Right.
that company?
Well, so just to explain to other people, so I'm Marshall Goldsmith's probably the most successful executive coach in the world. He started this paid forward organization called 100 Coaches. He said he would teach us everything he knows for free in the sole condition we someday do that for other people as well. That's what my bend reality is my attempts to do that. Um, what I've learned from Marshall, and Marshall has worked with a lot of family businesses. Um, is he's a huge believer in self-awareness and accountability. So for example, uh, everybody, individually, this is not a family business thing. It's the members of the people in the business, um, saying he does something called daily questions. Here's my 4, 5, 6 questions that I'm, if I say that, my priorities are family and tenacity and growth and, whatever it is that you say, he advocates, at the end of every day with an accountability partner who's just someone else who's doing this too. And you take a minute and you call each other and you say, you answer the 5 or 6 questions you have. Did I do my best today to love my family? And on a scale of 1 to 10, you rate yourself and you write it down. And you do this every day, and you see a pattern. First of all, if you do it every day, you end up holding yourself accountable to things like that. That practice also spawns self awareness. Like if you have to sit down at the end of the day and say, and talk to one other person and say, realistically, how well did I do today? And what you see, I mean, I've done this, and sometimes you see I got a 0 or a 2, you know, 2 weeks in a row. And then you have to decide for yourself, is that really one of my values, or should I just take it off the list? Because if I'm getting a 2, you know, every day for a month, then I'm not living it. And, so it's that sort of thing which applies. I mean, it doesn't just apply to family business, but I know through Marshall, it works very well in that setting. I'd say
Mhm.
the other thing is being willing to take um, constructive feedback, even when it's hard, even when you don't want to hear it. Um, that's essential because how do you keep lines of communication open um, in this sort of setting where there can be, you know, um, a lot of love, but also a lot of different viewpoints and perhaps different values. And,
Right.
um, that's really the thing. Like if I give you feedback and you say thanks, but I'm not going to do it, I'm going to stop giving you feedback.
Right. Well, you could do a whole nother session on emotional intelligence, but I like what you pointed out about some of the key building blocks. I do coaching with the Tony Robbins
Hmm.
organization, and I like the pyramid of mastery that they point out within the program, building up from um, your your person, your personal meaning, going
Hmm.
through the management of relationships and time and work and
Right.
finances and ultimately celebrating.
Right.
So learned a lot from that. But I would encourage people to look into the the Goldsmith 100 Coaches program if they're interested in that. It's really a powerful organization. It's great that you went through that. Did you bring some of those insights into your books? Tell us about the books you've written and what are some of your favorite mantras or lessons around leadership that you
Well, I don't really use the word leadership very often,
right.
even though I get that it's out there. The truest to me book is How to Self Promote Without Being a Jerk, and it's poorly named, um, although there's reasons I named it that, but it really is built on my credo, which talks about being generous and expert and trustworthy and clear, open-minded and persistent and present. Um, it's so it's structured around those elements, and so it's really everything I do is about how do you move through the world as a human being, and that gets reflected in all the places you spend time, work, community, friendships, fitness, adventure, whatever it is, spirituality, religion, you name it, and if you have that clear sense of how you want to move through the world, then everything's not easy, but at least you have a sense of consistency and what am I trying to accomplish here and
Mhm.
how am I trying to be. If you don't, I mean, the problem I have with most things I read in business is that it they're kind of ignore the fact that we're human beings. It's like
Mm.
economics. When I studied economics in Wharton, it was a long time ago, but I remember it was an idealized view of the world. The world
Mm.
doesn't actually view like the way I was taught economics. It's people are not rational; they are irrational and they're emotional. And so I mean, one of my favorite sayings is "Be human, not perfect." You know, to be an actual human being. For example, if you're capable of saying, I don't know how to do this. Could you help me? For example, let's say you're dealing with the next generation or
Right.
even just bring up talent. That's the most empowering thing you can say to somebody. And a lot of times, confident leaders or, elders, that needs to be a learned skill. They're not innately, you know, willing to do that. Why should I ask for help from some upstart 27-year-old? Because you're going to empower that person and you're going to give them an opportunity to bring out their talent. So those are the type of topics that really interest me. How do we be more human with each other? And whatever your initial motivation, it's family business or it's just I want to have a world in which I actually want to live.
Yes.
Um, that's what matters to me.
Well, everyone on this audiocast and today and later will be looking to make money, but everybody also wants to be part of a mission where they feel that they're able to be part of that culture that works for them, either being connected to the leaders of the organization or being a leader that is able
Mm,
to be an effective leader. And part of leadership that we are learning today, especially through Harvard Business Review and some other leaders like Adam Grant and Scott Galloway and other Martin Roll, others talking about corporate culture, includes the really the human element you're talking about. So I noticed in Work Magazine, you wrote an article about kindfulness,
yep.
and sort of having more openness in the workplace. And we also see that in Ray Dalio's work as well, that he's discussed being open in terms of looking for improvement within Bridgewater. Maybe talk a couple of minutes about the importance of kindness, even within a context of raw capital.
Mm. So, you said at least three things I want to comment on. Um, the first is Ray Dalio, who's a complicated and very intelligent person. Um, he'd be the first one to support the first thing I said about focus on what matters most, because he's has always been into mindfulness and clarity, and do you really understand the subject? And if you don't, then if I call you out on it, you should be thankful, not uh, uncomfortable with that. So I think there's a lot to learn from him and the way he writes about the world. Um, Adam Grant, actually, who you mentioned, actually is the only person on the cover of my book, because I have one testimonial and it's from him. I think what
Yeah,
Adam does is
wonderful.
amazing.
Yeah,
His Give and Take book is, which was his first big book, is really extraordinarily close to that, how to self promote without being a jerk, because it's it's giving the most successful. His thesis is basically um, the most successful people are kind of practice enlightened self interest. You do um, you ultimately will benefit more by being helpful to other people. You ultimately, if you do the types of things I'm talking about, even if your goal is to make money, you will still do better if you are other focused rather than just self focused. Um, and then the third thing is that um, because I know so many coaches who work with literally the top executives around the world, um, I see a theme. And the theme is that there are a lot of enormously successful people who would not say late in their life that they are fulfilled or necessarily pleased with the way their life turned out. And the difference, and this is not my conclusion, this is a lot of smarter people than myself, um, is how you deal with relationships. If you put relationships first, um, meaning the mutual, not just your side, but both sides of relationships, you won't end up in that situation where you're successful but not fulfilled, or successful but not happy with how your life turned out. It is relationships and how you deal with them that is the differentiator. Um, because you put relationships first does not mean you won't make money. It means you will be able to be successful, whether it's money or growth or a service, whatever it is. Um, and the and part is the most important. And say, wow, this was a great ride. I wouldn't change anything. I made mistakes, but I wouldn't change anything. Um, and that's the biggest lesson I've learned in the last 10 years, and I think the biggest lesson anybody could learn.
that's wonderful. As a corollary to that, in business, it seems like there's a real drive for success and for wealth and for power, right? And so a lot of
Hmm.
that motivation comes through the what and the how and where and like who you're working with. But ultimately, it seems like there's a lot of value in asking why, why you're doing something. Why are you working at this company? Why are you making this investment? Why
Right.
are you building this board of people and personalities? Just to kind of wrap up today, tell us your thoughts on, how you coach and think about the why and between, with between the chapters and folds of business and how that motivates people to be the best.
Yeah, so I start my day with 3 columns. It's on a piece of paper that I call daily gratitude, and, it has 3 columns: being, growing, doing, and, um, and I look at them in that order. Basically, who do I wanna be? And there's, 5 or 6 things. They don't tend to change. They're pretty much the same every day. How am I growing? And then, only then, do I look at my doing column. My doing column has like all the things related to my business, my clients and projects, and what are the status. Um, and for me, at least, it works. I think it can work well for other people. Um, I actually got it from a woman, those 3 words in, UNICEF, who during COVID, she was instrumental in raising $1 billion, to help,
Wow.
alleviate suffering around the world. And I thought if it's good enough for her, I actually asked her permission, and I borrowed it. And so I think that type of way, because it's, as you said, why, like, what is the meaning? I have money. I don't need more money. What is it that I need? So how do I want to be in the world? And then everything follows that. And that sort of clarity, I think, is really helpful, and it gives you more traction.
That's wonderful. Well, you are a distiller, as people say. So thank you for sharing some very thoughtful comments today about people and humanity, organizational behavior, leadership, culture. It's great to dig into some of the true essence of organizations, as you say, with people, ideas, and possibilities. Bruce can be found at his website at Kasanoff.com, and of course on LinkedIn, where he's going to hit the million mark, I'm sure soon, which is impressive. And Bruce, I'm glad we connected. And I want to thank you for today. It was very inspiring.
My pleasure, Adam, and thanks to everybody who's been here. I really appreciate it. I'm happy to if you want to reach out and talk, I'm happy to do that too.
I want to thank you for joining today at the Family Business Audiocast and our illustrious guest, Bruce, founder of Ben Reality, influential, trusted, and well-respected expert. This is Arden Smith signing off. Stay tuned for our next episode of Family Business Audiocast on LinkedIn. Have a great day.